seminar. We have an honored guest here. His name is Jayānanda Prabhu. Jayānanda Dāsa Prabhu. He is the director of the Deity Worship Ministry and for North America. For North America. But you're based out of Mayapur, right?
Half the time there, he's less.
So he's half the time in Mayapur and half the time in the U.S. Currently, he's been visiting different temples, watching the pujaris and seeing how the deity worship is going here in America. So he's here today, and this morning he watched our pujaris, and he was very pleased as far as I know. So he's going to speak to us on some aspects of deity worship, and if you have any questions or concerns, then you can present them to him afterwards.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for the warm welcome. It's been a few years since I've been here in Dallas, and the last time I was in Dallas, I wasn't serving in this capacity. So first and foremost, I'd like to thank you all for the hospitality. I'm in want of no convenience that hasn't been already offered, so I feel right at home. Wanted to take this opportunity today to kind of have a fireside chat, so to speak, with the pujaris. Not so much a seminar per se as sort of like a in-house Radhakala Chanji Pujari team meeting where we can, have discussion, discuss what strengths we feel like we have within ourselves and together as a Pujari team here at the temple, and what questions we might have, what challenges we may have, things of that nature. So kind of like an open forum type of thing. And oftentimes when it comes to the subject of deity worship, there's always questions, right? There's always so many questions. And oftentimes when you ask these questions to different people, you get different answers or different variations. Sometimes deity worship is like that. While we say that, okay, according to Guru Sadhu Sastra, that's there, no doubt. But sometimes we understand that there's even different angles of vision when it comes to that, especially in regard to deity worship. So, you mentioned my name is Jayānanda Dāsa. I've been serving in this capacity as the deity worship representative or minister, whatever you want to call it, for North America for a couple years now. And our primary service that we try to fulfill, our mission, our goal is to act as an arm of the GBC, under the direction of the GBC. We're here to help train, inspire devotees in this very important anga of Panchanga Bhakti. So while the holy name is the Yuga Dharma, no doubt, that's our primary means, we see how our acharyas, Srila Rupa Goswami, said deity worship is there as well. So oftentimes we get this question, what's the need of this deity worship? Harinam is the Yuga Dharma, so what is all this? This is just, Or sometimes we say it's just for neophytes. You'll hear that sometimes as well. So what do we say to that? What's the answer to that? Deity worship's not needed. Harinam is the Yuga Dharma. So why are we bothering? Why are you all doing this?
Prabhupada asked us to.
Prabhupada asked us to.
Krishna is a person.
Krishna is a person. He's come as the Archavigraha.
Personal, more impersonal.
Anyone else? Yes, please.
So we do this chanting and dharma just to go back to Godhead. But what we need to go there, ultimately succeed to go there. Deity worship. So we is like a practicing thing. We have an association with Krishna. Being that.
Yeah. You're already learning how to serve Krishna here. So we'll be all set. Actually, there's I don't recall the source exactly. Maybe it was, I think Prabhupada said the Jayānanda Dāsa. Anyway, I've heard Jayānanda Dāsa, who's one of the topmost pujaris in ISKCON. He's been serving nonstop for over 40 years in Mayapur. The understanding I had, what I heard was, many of us, is once we get purified, before going straight to Goloka Vrindavan, first we take place in Krishna's Leela somewhere in the material universe. And then we can go. But something to the effect of, no, but the pujaris, because they already learned how to serve Krishna directly, so you go straight there. You go straight. Yeah. Another aspect is that, yes, chanting the holy name is the primary. But Jiva Goswami says, I think it's Madhya 24, I'll have to get my source. It's Madhya 15108 or something like that, where Srila Prabhupada in a purport states that Jiva Goswami says, yeah, the holy name is all that's needed. But because we have so much conditioning, this deity worship helps to purify us. So it actually is a assistant to the heart, to the holy name like that. So that's kind of how we want to look at it. We want to understand that by performing this deity worship and being able to directly serve Krishna as a person, it acts as an assistant to our primary sadhana of chanting the holy name. And in terms of that argument where many say, oh, it's just for kanishtas, neophytes, so on and so forth. It is for them, but not just them. How can someone say that and forget that all the 6 Goswamis are engaged in deity worship? Were they neophytes? I don't think so. So, that'll put that one to rest, right? So in terms of what we've been doing at the ministry, I just want to offer some updates. Some might not have come across or be so familiar with what we're doing. So the deity worship minister for globally is Nrsimha Kavacha Prabhu. He's been the deity worship minister for quite a number of years now. When the ministry first started, it was, I believe, around 95, and Krishna Kshetra Prabhu was the first minister. And one of the main achievements that came out of his service in the ministry was he put out that Pancharatra Pradeep book, that orange book on deity worship. And then shortly thereafter, Nrsimha Kavacha Prabhu, before he was minister, he was doing trainings a lot in Vrindavan and Mayapur like that. A few years thereafter, he became minister, and he's been minister ever since. So it's essentially, he's heading up the ministry, and then I'm serving in the capacity of North America, as well as doing some global stuff along with Nrsimha Kavacha Prabhu. And one thing that I'm happy to announce that we're have underway is we have a revision coming to that Pancharatra Pradeep. That book was put out in 95, so it's been quite some time since since a revision. It's been out of print. You can get it on database and all that, so it's there, and so devotees that really want to see it, get it. It's there for them. However, it's high time to get it back into print and to revise it, and little by little we improve it. So we're hoping to have that ready and available around the time of February, March this coming year. As we speak, yesterday, for the last few weeks, we've been editing. Prabhu's in Australia, and then I'm here, and we're having Skype calls and editing and all that. So really happy about that. Another achievement of the ministry is we have the Mayapur Academy. How many of you have heard of Mayapur Academy? Maybe half of you. So this is ISKCON's deity worship school. Every year we have classes that are given in English, as well as there's local Bengali classes as well. But for those with the English medium, we offer about a 4-month course. And it goes generally from around Kartik to Nityananda Trayodasi. And so that gives a nice in-depth experience for those devotees that are fortunate enough to be in a situation where they can be there, be in Mayapur Dham for a number of months in a row. So we've been doing that now for a good 7 years or so. And actually, I'm supposed to be there right now. Normally, when I'm in Mayapur, it's during that time. I came back early because things just were going quite well. We have a good, strong team, plenty of good quality and quantity devotees there taking care of everything. And so I said, let me come back and go around North America and try to somehow serve the temples there. So I want everyone to feel like they get something out of this, and so I'm hoping that there's maybe some questions that we can generate some discussion on, and we can kind of feed off that and go from one thing to another. Many of you, I'm sure, have been pujaris for some time here, and might have had experience offering pujari seva, some other temples as well. So I want to, take this opportunity to get to know you, create relationships, so that even though I'm only here for a couple of days, going forward, we'll be able to connect and we'll be able to, discuss anything and what have you, and keep in touch somehow or another. Does that sound like a plan?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay.
Yes.
So, who wants to ask that first fateful question?
I just wanted to comment on your initial, talking about the importance of deity worship. That, Tamal Krishna Goswami quotes Srila Prabhupada. He said in his final 2 weeks in his bed, at one point he said, "There's no better position than to be a pujari of the deity." And that was in his final weeks, couple of weeks.
Wow.
So, regardless of how you understand it, Srila Prabhupada, even in his final weeks, he was thinking like that.
Mm-hmm.
And he said as much.
Yeah. Srila Prabhupada's put so much energy into the deity worship aspect, as we know. Yes.
We see that different devotees have been trained in different ways, as far as deity worship, how to do the arati and things.
Yeah.
Because they've come from different temples or been trained in different ways. So each devotee, if he gets up there, may do a little different than the other devotees. So is that proper, or should there be a set standard of the way to actually do a arati or
Right.
do an offering or whatever?
Right. That's a wonderful question. Perfect question. Perfect question to kind of start this off. I actually have a nice quote queued up because this is oftentimes a hot topic. How do we handle this? Because we understand that there's some differences. And in Srimad Bhagavatam 4.854, this is a nice unity and diversity quote. That's what I call it. It goes, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Mantre Nanena Devasya Kuryad Dravyamayim Buddha Saparyam Vidade Dravyer Deshakala Vivagari. So the translation is Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. This is the 12th syllable mantra for worshipping Lord Krishna. One should install the physical forms of the Lord, and with the chanting of the mantra, one should offer flowers and fruits and other varieties of foodstuffs, exactly according to the rules and regulations prescribed by authorities. But this should be done in consideration of place, time, and attendant conveniences and inconveniences. So this is basically the Kalidesha Patra verse. In an excerpt of the fairly long purport that Srila Prabhupada has, Prabhupada says, the method of worship, chanting the mantra, preparing the forms of the Lord, is not stereotyped, nor is it exactly the same everywhere. It is specifically mentioned in this verse that one should take consideration of the time, place, and available conveniences. So, we have principles in deity worship, and then we have details. And so really it's a matter of navigating what's what. As a general rule, it's often proper for those devotees that while they might have done something some way, they followed a specific padati, step by step with how to do something at their temple. Okay, that's the service that those particular deities have gotten and are used to. So similarly, when you come to a new temple if their lordships are used to being served in a certain way that's within the realm of, proper worship, then generally we want to adjust our service to that. So it's just like a first class, like a first class hotel or something like that. What makes, when it comes to different service industries, what makes them oftentimes so first class? It's that as you go there at different times, and no matter who's happens to be working that day, you're expecting the same service and you're getting it. It's consistent. So while it's okay and we're not robots and we don't have to do everything exactly the same, also it's nice to have this mood that, okay, in this case, this is how Radha Kalachandji has been worshipped for so many years, and this is, what I'm going to take up. I'm going to follow suit. Not that, we want to change what those devotees who have been serving for so many years, we want to change that up or anything like that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it's like when you do an RT, what is the, I don't know if we want to get into details as far as what's the proper way, but what is the proper way to do an RT? Who do you start with? Do you start with Kalachandji? Do you start with the Guru?
Right.
How's that done?
So, Srila Prabhupada does give some instruction on RT, but not complete details. The framework is there. And he says, I can pull up a few quotes, but you're going to present to your Diksha Guru first. And we understand if we're not a Srila Prabhupada disciple, Diksha Guru, then Srila Prabhupada is our founder Acharya. And then Srila Prabhupada says, Lord Chaitanya, then to the primary deity, if there's the Radha Krishna deities like that. Now, the RT system, believe it or not, whether it be the original Padati that was in Bengali that was translated a number of years ago in the 70s, they called the Archana Padati, whether it be that or Pancharatra Pradeep, it doesn't spell out all the details for different circumstances in different temples. It's really easy if you just have like a Gauranga deity and Radha Krishna, and then it's really easy. But where a lot of devotees have questions and they stumble is, okay, well, one pujari, and then okay, I offered to Radha Krishna, but okay, here's some more Vishnu Tattvas over here. Here's Jagannath Baladev Subhadra. Okay, what am I doing? Am I offering prasad, or is it boga, or it starts to get a little involved, and so that's one thing that as we teach the process of arati, that's one of the things that we find that students oftentimes and pujaris oftentimes get tripped up on. And oftentimes we're not able to offer a fully satisfying answer because there are some different systems going on there. So there's some fundamentals that we should stick to, and then there's some other things. In the case of here, practically speaking, it'd be ideal if everyone has the same page and the same understanding.
So in the matter of the sequence offering the arti, because somehow I think I read you take permission from your guru and you take permission from Srila Prabhupada and from Srimati Tulsi Devi, and then you begin the arti with Radha Kalachandji in our case. So you take permission from them and because
I haven't heard Tulsi Devi with Lord Chaitanya.
Okay.
The idea is it's sort of like an ascending process. The point is who connects you to Krishna? It's Guru. So you're going through Guru. So that's the idea. It's kind of like ascending and descending like that.
But then you would begin the arti in itself with Radha Krishna or Radha Kalachandji. Is that how?
Yeah. The understanding is ultimately you're offering boga to Radha Kalachandji. There's a lot of ins and outs, and there's many temples with so many deities, and okay.
Yeah.
If you have 3 pujaris on each singhasan, those temples that have 3 singhasans, then it's easy. But in the case like here, where it's one pujari always offering the arati, and you have multiple Vishnu Tattva sets of Vishnu Tattva deities. So that's something we can discuss further if there is any concern. But there's no black and white answer to that. For some reason, through the years, it's never been anything.
Yeah, for regarding Aarti, I have a question, like when we start Aarti, some devotees told me you have to just show the incense to Guru and take permission, and some devotees told me you have to do the full Aarti of like 7 times incense, like how we do for Kalachandi. You have to do same first Guru and then Param Guru and then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and then Lord main deities, Kalachandi. So what is the right procedure? We should just take permission, or we should do the full Aarti of Guru, Param Guru, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then Kalachandi?
Well, there's 2 aspects. There's the internal and there's the external. So there's the intention, like the understanding, and then there's what we're seeing outwardly. Do you know what system in terms of what you're doing?
Taking the permission is first. Taking the permission of Guru and the Guru, Param Guru, then Lord Chaitanya, then the arti is offered to Radharani, Kalachandi.
So her question is, do you actually do the 7 times, or do
No.
you just take permission to do the 7
No,
times?
it doesn't start with that. She said some pujaras told her that.
Yeah.
But if you get that deity worship book, you'll see that it says, like you were saying at first.
Just take permission and then do full Aarti to main deities.
Right.
And then
Right,
go
and
down.
then the descending process.
Oh.
Yeah, you'll see when it comes to how many circles, you'll see that you'll see that, for instance, in the Archana Paddhati, which was sort of ISKCON's first manual, it said, for instance, with let's say maybe flowers, for instance. I think it said 4 around the feet, and then what was it, 7 around the body after that, or something like that. And then you look in the Pancharatra Pradeep and it just says 7 around the body. So you're like, what's right and what's wrong? The answer is neither are right or wrong. There's nothing in Shastra except for Deepa, where it explains how it should be offered. So here we are, as an international organization, and the idea is we want to somehow, as we're teaching deity worship, we want to somehow be all on the same page. So if some temple is or some pujari is doing it like that, if they were taught like that, that's fine. It's not wrong. If they were trained up in the old way, it's not wrong per se. But for the sake of, just from a training standpoint, we want to be clear and try to minimize any kind of confusion and present some certain way to do it. Otherwise, it's just so much confusion. But know that ultimately, when it comes right down to it, it's only the lamp that you in a couple places in Shastra it says start at the feet and going up. Everything else, it's nothing like that. It's an interesting thing as you get more and more into deity. What I'm learning when I'm actually looking for references and going into different things, and some of the details that oftentimes we're looking for to see exactly how something's done, it's not necessarily there. So it's open to some some flexibility there. Yes.
One thing I'd heard, I think it was from Srila Prabhupada, maybe a Prabhupada remembrance tape, and it's with doing an arti or doing deity worship, it's not so much the outward thing, like counting the times around. You don't really want to be counting. You want to be offering with love, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that it's important what's in your heart, and that you're either with the deity, or if you're doing arti to Srila Prabhupada, you're asking the deity, accept this, please, with love. I'm offering you this incense. Now I have water. Now I have a lamp. Please accept it. And that, in looking at the deity as you're doing it, you want to be in a loving mood where you're appreciating the deity and the deity is appreciating what you're offering. And it's not so much that you're supposed to count 1, 2, 3, because then the feeling that should be there for the deity is being interrupted by the fact you're counting. it's nice to keep a general idea of how many times you've done, especially with the lamp, because like the lamp is stated, you know, to try and do it the amount of times for each area. But that's how I try to do it, and that's what I've heard from, I guess, from sources.
Says that that's, you know, at a certain stage, you're not going to be standing there counting circles when, you know, you're going to have a rapport with the deity and with his personalities, and you're going to be...
True. At a certain stage, you're gonna automatically do the numbers without even thinking about it. That's not even going to be in the forefront of your mind. It's going to be like driving a car that you've been driving for years. You don't really think about it. You're just automatically doing it. But the feeling that you're getting from offering this to the Lord, that's what you're looking for. That love and devotion.
The primary upachara is bhakti, as Mataji said, love and devotion. So that's what we're trying to give and develop. And whether we're doing a boga offering or offering an arati or whatever it may be, these are the vehicles, so to speak, of how we're able to try to transfer that. That being said, we're also, you know, operating according to the Pancharatrika. We're in Vidimar. You know, we're especially with the temple worship. While we are developing these feelings, and with time and as we advance, there'll be more of a predominance of feeling that rag. But Srila Prabhupada was also very strict about, you know, following rules and regulations. So, you know, cleanliness and punctuality, that's all there. So even though a devotee may be operating on a very high level, say they come to the temple and they're offering worship, they want to follow the rules. It's not like, you know, I'm on Rag Marg, I can be 10 minutes late, no problem. I won't take any, you know, Radhakala Sanji won't take any offense because, you know, they know I love for them. No, it's not like that. Vidimar.
So, I know that the sequence is still not clear to me, but within the details, like for example, when we are offering the lamp to Shishi Paramita or Jagannath Baladev Subhadra, so what's the sequence like when we are offering the lamp to Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Mataji? What should be the sequence? First we should do the Jagannath or to the Subhadra or to the...
Yeah, this is what I'm exactly talking about, because there's some that will offer according to Leela. Some will offer according to Tattva. If it was Leela, okay, Balaram's the older brother, so offer to him first. If it's Tattva, okay, Krishna's avatar, I'm going to offer to Krishna first. So there's nothing, you know, there's no instructions that we were actually given in that regard. So, you know, I would divert your question to Mataji when it comes to that. However, it's been done here. You know, just follow that and have the proper conception and understanding why you do it that way.
How do you do the arti yourself? What's your understanding?
It all depends on the personalities on the altar. And
No.
I mean, there's so many. I can tell you that many temples are set up such that, you know, you have 3 Singhasans, you have Gaurnitai, Radha Krishna, and then on the end you'll have Jagannath Baladev Subhadra like that. So when there's just one pujari, as a matter of practicality, more or less we go from one Singhasan to another. Personally, once again, it's not right or wrong. Nishinga Kavacha Prabhu, he follows, you know, a system that he learned a long time ago, where he strictly goes ascending. But most temples and most pujaris adopt a system where the pujari will go left to right. You know, when you have 3 Simhasans, so you offer to present to Guru Srila Prabhupada, then Gaurnitai, then you go to Radha Krishna, and then with the understanding that you're not offering prasadam to Jagannath Baladev Subhadra, you're offering to them as well. And when you're finished, you know, offering to all the deities, the understanding can be like, okay, now it's prasad, and then descending, you'll offer to Tulsi Devi, Guru Paramparali. That's one way to do it.
And do you yourself have a standard for the circles? Like your deity worship minister?
Yeah.
What's your standard?
We go by what's currently in our book, in the Pancharatrika Deep. So In terms of incense, just 7 around the body. The lamp, that never changed. That's 4237. And then the argya is 3 above the head, 7 around the body. Handkerchief, 7 around the body. Flower, 7 around the body. And suitable a number of times for the chamar and pen. That's what we do. That's what we teach. Yes, Prabhu.
Prabhu, could you speak a little bit about the significance of mantra snana that happens before one altar?
Mantra snana. Yeah. So our primary snana is Varuna snana, meaning we're actually taking water bath. So we always want to be careful that we're coming. See, there's 6 aspects of purity. We call it Sadshuddhi. And so there's Atma Shuddhi, Chitta Shuddhi, all this stuff. Atma Shuddhi is the cleanliness of our body. And so, we want to be careful to always be clean and purified before we go on the altar. And so there's a range. You go from gross to subtle. So, in terms of gross, we're talking about taking a bath, having clean cloths, so on and so forth. But then for more subtle and spiritual purity, we'll perform Bhuta Shuddhi, we'll perform Achman and all these things. So many of you are probably familiar. Lord Chaitanya, when he was in front in Chaitanya Charitamrita, you see the shloka. When it was one of the Rath Yatras, Lord Chaitanya offered that prayer. Aham vikram nachara bhaktiram vaisham sudro naham bhardi nachara bhaktiram navanas priyuta kintu prajnanitara paramananitara vitana gopi bhakti padakamanivata sadatsamada. Most of you are probably familiar with that. So this gets us in that mood, getting us away from our bodily consciousness. Okay. So that's key. Before you go on the altar, you can get into this subtle purification, and then finally the spiritual purification by performing Achman with mantra.
The reason I ask is because I live at 10 minutes away. I take a shower and then sit in the car, which is all mochi probably, different circumstances. Then come to the temple, and I understand that mantra snana will probably take care of all the impurities, and then you can go on the altar. Is that a fair understanding?
Yeah, it's a balance. Some pujaris, if you feel like you're, first of all, keep your car clean.
It's pretty clean.
As Brahmana means being clean, and so whether it be our car, our home, or whatever, take care of it. We should have our car clean enough to consider that, whatever, after taking a shower and putting on our clean cloth, we're okay. Some pujaris, they feel like, okay, let me put a cloth on top of the seat or something like that. So if you're inclined to do that, okay. We don't emphasize that so much. Srila Prabhupada was a very, practical person when it came to things. So he was primarily concerned about, taking back, clean cloth, these kind of things. But yeah, whatever you can do to assist in purification, wonderful. Wonderful. Om Apavitra Pavitro Va Sarva Stambhatopi Va Dasmarit Sundari Darsam Sabaya Yantarasiji. So whether pure state, impure state, remembering the Is that okay?
Yes. Just trying to figure out, is the mantra snana the ultimate snana that I can, take care of all the, whatever, the drive and all that stuff, Will that mantra snana take care of all the purification? Is that the purpose of the mantra snana? Trying to understand. This achman that you do before you go on the altar.
Yeah.
I read somewhere that it will take care of all the impurities. Whatever purpose.
Yeah, I don't have a really esoteric answer. Just practically speaking, you take a shower and have clean cloth and have clean car and come here and perform Achman, Bhuta Shuddhi and all that. You're fine. You're fine.
Go ahead.
Thanks for taking this time to
was, are there any standards or anything for like cooking? Anything for cooking or like?
Yeah, there's standards for everything regarding deity worship. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, is there anything specific you have in mind?
Yeah, like we have like a general trend on what we make, like 2 sabjis and everything for the evening dinner offering. But like, is there like any sort of guidelines on what kind of sweets we can make, or they're just open? Like we try to do things like try to make variety for the deities.
Yeah.
Because halwa is the standard in the evening, but then we try to do different things. So is that okay, not okay?
In general, it's nice to have staple items, and then oftentimes devotees can, if they have time and facility, can add to that. That's generally the way it goes. In Vrindavan, Srila Prabhupada actually took personal time to figure out a menu for Krishna, Balaram, and Navadvip. I can look that up. Oh, one interesting point. Should I talk about the 3s? Yeah. So one interesting thing is, and I've seen this at a few temples. Many of us have heard, okay, offer items in 3s, right? Okay, so we got 3 gulab jamun, or we got whatever, 3 pakora, we got 3 sandesh, all that. Actually, Srila Prabhupada instructed on more than one occasion, and you can find it in the database, I'll pull it up. It says 3 is for the enemy when it comes to bhoga items. So he says, I don't know if it's all of India or maybe it's certain places in India. Maybe some of you heard it. If I were to present you with, 3 sandesh, that's indicating that I consider you my enemy. 3 pieces. So for some reason, I don't know how it came to be that, it's understood that 3. When it comes to bhoga, you got to do 3s. It's auspicious. It's only odd numbers. It's not like that. So here's one conversation. This is in Hari Sori's Transcendental Diary, and so a devotee. It's a conversation going back and forth. So the devotee says, he's talking to Prabhupada. Did you say 3? 1 or 3? Prabhupada says, what is that? Devotee says, when you offer something, you once said in Delhi either 1 or 3. Prabhupada says, that is neck beat. No, yes, not, yes, arti. Devotee, yes, Shruti Kirti has offered my son 2 cookies. Prabhupada, no. Devotee, and I think you said either 1 or 3. Prabhupada says, no, I said, I'm sorry, this is getting a little confusing going back and forth. I can copy it and send it. But devotee says 2 or 4, then Prabhupada says, 2 or 4. Devotee says, is there some reason behind this? Prabhupada says, yes. 3 is offered to the enemy. If I offer something, 3, that means you are my enemy. And devotee says, so how many sticks of incense? 2? And Prabhupada says, no, there is no such. So our understanding is this is referring to offering food stuff, not anything else. There's another short quote with George Harrison, when George Harrison was eating with Srila Prabhupada, and Prabhupada instructed the server. Prabhupada says, don't give 3, at least 4, like that. And then with George Harrison protesting that he wouldn't be able to eat much more, Prabhupada explained, 3 is given to the enemy. According to our Indian system, if you give somebody 3, that means he is enemy. So that's 2 quotes saying the same thing. And then when we actually look at, in 1976, in Vrindavan, Prabhupada was personally working out the menu, the daily menu. And everything is evened. Like it doesn't say about Mangalarti, it just says Mangalarti, sweet rice, rasgulla, 2 other milk sweets. Breakfast, 2 puris, some halva, sabji, fruits. Rajbhog, 6 rotis, rice, dal, 4 sabjis, chutney, all day sweet, like that. In the afternoon, 2 samosas, 2 puris, 2 pakoras, 2 other pakoras, 2 pieces of the all-day sweet, 2 kachoris, 2 sweet balls, 2 burfi, 2 samosa. It's like that, So this 3 thing isn't. So I'll leave that up to you how you want to deal with it. 2 or 4 or whatever.
Put it in that book when you edit it.
Yeah, it's in there. Actually, I noticed that I missed it, so we put it in last night. Like, oh, we got to put it. Yeah. So that's an interesting aspect. But in terms of menu, you know, Srila Prabhupada, you know, it seems like traditionally he wanted some, you know, set varieties, and then you can add to that the variety, you know, different things.
We then try to stick to, you know, the number of items that have to go on the deity offering plate, but then we try to make different menus, you know, like when God's when we both, you know, like cook together, we like to just make different varieties.
Yeah.
And that's okay, right?
Variety is the spice of life. Yeah, you don't want to cook the same subject all the time and all that stuff. Yeah, make some variety. You know, I'm sure you've all heard it. You know, Radharani never made the same thing twice.
Yeah, he's saying don't exclude the halwa, but make an extra.
Keep the halwa too.
Generally,
Because it's a standard part of the meal.
What if he doesn't like the other items, he just has the halwa?
it's kind of, we call it staple items. You know, it's like you wouldn't skip the rice, but you know, so something. Generally, you want to kind of have these staple items, and then you can add variety to that.
So not another sweet substitute for that halwa. Not another.
Generally not. Generally not.
I have a question. I need to know from the head majority, am I making more sandals today?
Yeah,
Or
that's
more
what
today?
And because
Am I making
when
4
we make
pieces or I'm making
all days a week, we make a certain number. This is cut in squares, it's 60.
Right.
That means there's 12 for 5 offerings.
Smaller
If
pieces.
we're only offering 2 or 4, are we making more or less?
Are we increasing? Are we decreasing?
There's another thing that we hear in deity worship, right? It's like you never decrease, you either increase.
Bigger burden.
Cut them smaller. There you go. Make 4 pieces. You satisfy both, right? You satisfy both considerations by just a little smaller. Yes,
Somebody told me never put 2 incense, right? Always keep either 1 or 3. But now I'm hearing something else. So that a senior devotee told me that always use 3 or 4 number, not the even number.
You didn't hear anything else here. We were talking about foodstuffs. We're talking about foodstuffs. We weren't talking about. Yeah, just like you see with RT lamps, you always see odd, it's a ekadeep or a panchadeep. Yeah, so yeah. Generally we are offering odd number of incense sticks. Yes,
from a cleanliness of clothes. Typically we wash clothes here out of convenience at certain times a week on whatever is convenient for us, right? And then we fold it and keep it. We try to keep it in a neutral area where other clothes are not touching. But what is the general rule for that? Especially the clothes that we wear to the pujari room.
Yeah. So the idea is they need to be fresh, meaning, like for instance, sometimes you might wash something and you put it away for a long time, and when you take it out, it's stale. You know, kind of like stale. So ideally, we want them to be fresh. It's not good enough if you washed it some long time ago and maybe it's stale now. So it's a nicer, better standard to ensure that it's fresh. There's different rules when it comes to how often you're able to wear cloth. There's some things in Shastra. Basically, silk is supposed to last the longest. Cotton. I don't know. There's some divisions that I think some devotees made, but it might not be quite that specific in Shastra. But like general rule is like, okay, cotton, you can use it for the day. Jute a little bit longer. Silk even longer, and then wool is basically stays pure. And so, but when it comes right down to it, we don't want to use these things as kind of like a crutch or an excuse for us being slack in our personal cleanliness habits. Especially if it's hot here in Dallas and we're and we're perspiring a lot and all, generally we wouldn't want to use that same cloth over again. But otherwise, it's not unheard of, a cool winter day like this, could potentially, say you're doing the evening dressing and all that. You could do the evening dressing and say you have service the following morning, as long as you take off that cloth before you do anything that would contaminate it and put it back on the following morning. That's not unheard of. We do that all the time.
So typically, you don't want to keep wearing after you wash it, you want to wear it within maybe 1 week or so, not more.
Yeah, the point is just so it doesn't go stale, so it stays fresh. And there's also some different understandings when it comes to, after we honor prasadam and things like that, having to take a bath, take a shower, and all that. Many are surprised to hear that you don't necessarily need to take a shower after you honor prasadam. That most pujaris they'll automatically do that. Does anybody know why you wouldn't necessarily do that?
So you mentioned that about timely punctuality and cleanliness. So how much you really have to serious on that issue? Because you see most of the temples sometimes, especially I found devotees not really so much pay attention because they have a very ragmar emotion, so you cannot say anything. So you cannot describe how much you really need to be serious because sometimes other people get irritated with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that's another issue we discussed a lot about how many we should offer, Google, this, that. I don't get so much disturbed on that. Most cases I feel disturbed, not timely or cleanliness, these things, don't pay attention.
Yeah, good question. So the two primary principles that Srila Prabhupada was always emphasizing, it wasn't how elaborate the worship is and all that. He was focusing ritual was there, no doubt. He was focusing on cleanliness and punctuality. Cleanliness and punctuality. And what does punctuality mean? I have a nice quote right here. See, whenever we're trying to say something and having these questions, I'm always trying to reference Prabhupada's instructions because that's, our topmost instructions. Prabhupada said something. There should be no confusion about it. When it comes to punctuality, there's a situation in Vrindavan where he went and took his morning walk, and he came back for darshan. He asked, and he came back, with the mind of being right on time for darshan. He came back. The curtains weren't opened yet. He asked the devotee, what time is it? And the devotee understood that Prabhupada was wanting to be exact. And it was 30 seconds. And say the darshan was, I can look it up, I think the darshan was 7 o'clock or something. It was 7 o'clock and 30 seconds, and Prabhupada was complaining. So we can use that as a standard. Let me try to find it real quick. Yeah, Prabhupada was right. So the idea is you want to the minute is basically what we want to try to shoot for.
While you're looking for that, I'll also mention that Malkrishna Goswami in his diary of staying with Srila Prabhupada in his final months, he said that even when he was lying in bed, sometimes he would comment when he'd hear the conch shell. He says, "Why is it late?" And he was, that was his concern, even though he was very sick. And also the thing on the honoring prasad and why, I'm just going to take not very educated guess, but prasadam can't be contaminated, isn't it?
How is prasadam contaminated?
I'm saying prasadam cannot be contaminated, so why?
So why do we take a shower? Why do we do it? Right. Take a guess.
Leading is contamination. Leading is usually
you're touching your saliva, you're touching your mouth, and that's considered unclean.
Yeah. So, exactly.
Is that, to piggyback off of that, is that to say then if you honor Charamrita, it's also, but you're washing your hand at that point, maybe
Yeah.
that's.
Yeah, so the understanding is even we as pujaris, practically speaking, you know, whether you're taking Charanamrit or whether you're popping a rasgulla into your mouth, you're not touching your fingers to your mouth and that kind of thing. That kind of thing's permitted. Afterwards, you're going to wash your mouth, hands, feet, and perform Achman and all that, and you're good to go back on the altar. It's when you don't have to change your dress because it's understood. Okay, you're not getting saliva anywhere and all that. Consideration of saliva, you know, if you're really relishing, a big plate of prashadam and you're going to be getting saliva and things on your cloth. So that being said, if you were to honor a full plate of prashadam, the main consideration is you just have to change your cloth. You don't have to take a shower. You don't have to. Yeah. So you could. And you look at these things in Hari Bhakti Vilas. It's also in the Dharma Shastras and in purity. If you look in Manu Samhita and all that, it talks about the Sudhi Vichar, and it even talks about how if you got to pass water and things like that, saying cleanse the affected areas with mud and water and things like that. And it's understood if it's below the waist, then you could just you just clean the affected areas instead of having to take a full shower and all this. So all that kind of stuff's there in the Shastra.
Along with that, is water the same thing? Like if you drink water and then you change your clothes, you still go on it?
Generally, just drinking water, especially if we're sick and like that. Because the consideration is once again saliva and all that. So drinking water, you don't have an issue with.
I had two things. One, we were talking about cleanliness for deity worship, and I was wondering if you could give us some, maybe because you're around all over the world, and you're talking like Jayānanda Dāsa and his brother and different devotees. So do they have a standard that they try to follow for internal cleanliness before they assume their duties in deity worship? Or if there's something that you can see when you travel around that certain higher devotees, they always seem to be doing this or doing that, or something that internally prepares them for so many of their services. And I have another question after that, if you don't mind.
Externally speaking, we see the standard things we'd expect to see, just performing Achman, cleanse that.
They get up and perform, some. Because okay, the reason I'm asking because our spiritual master one time spoke in Houston that the best thing would be if the devotees would rise early and chant before Mangalarti, and then some pujaris were speaking, we have duties to do and this and that for deity worship. He says, well, you should actually get up and chant before you even do those.
Wow.
And that's pretty high standard, but I was wondering if you found that there were devotees that actually do like that.
I see them chanting in front of the Prabhupada Murti in the temple room during the regular japa time with all the devotees. That's what I normally see. Now, whether they're chanting some before, I don't know.
Yeah, who's to say? The other question I had was, a lot of times devotees have deities at home, and there's so many mantras we may say, and externally we repeat mantras, and then if there's individual altars at certain temples, maybe you can hear the mantras going on. But is there a certain protocol when all the deities are on one altar, so to speak, like ours and so many of our ISKCON temples, that they follow? Is it just a assumed practical way the devotees should assume some practicality in how they do their mantras? Or is there a protocol that they follow, Because if everybody, let's say if everybody has a certain meditation with their deities, they're coming on different times, then one devotee here is at a certain stage and speaking external mantras, this devotee, it begins, and plus then the other aspect of that is in a lot of our temples, the altars are connected to the temple rooms by only a curtain. And so you have japa, you have, all this stuff going on. Is there anything you can say about all that?
I haven't heard.
You kind of know what I'm talking about?
I kind of know what you're talking about, just in terms of like trying to be able to focus on your particular...
Somebody does a silent meditation when they're doing it, and somebody else is very verbal.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's some, if it's just each individual should have some practical, have some practical considerations, or whether there's a protocol that generally you see followed.
This is the first time I've ever gotten that question, where maybe one person's service and them chanting and whatnot might be affecting, the worship of another.
Okay.
I think the practical thing is if that is the case, and you approach that devotee in the right mood and humbly, and that, because we want to help each other. We shouldn't just care about our own service. We want to facilitate each other as well.
Correct.
So if we have that kind of mood, then chances are that devotee would be willing to accommodate. Okay, so it's not just because it's about all of you as a team serving the Lordships together. I found that quote real quick when it comes to punctuality. Punctuality is huge. So the point is we're not on, at least externally, we're not on this Rag Marg thing, and it's all about rules, Deity. So here we go. Prabhupada this is in the Srila Prabhupada Lila Amrita. Prabhupada would take his morning walk, timing it so he would be back in the temple a few moments before the deity doors were supposed to open for darshan. Once when he was waiting, with all the devotees gathering around, he looked at his watch and asked Akshāyananda Swami, "What is the time?" Aware that Srila Prabhupada was speaking with exactitude, Akshāyananda replied that it was 30 seconds after 7:30. Prabhupada shook his head, and with a resigned look he said, "It is very difficult to be a Brahmana, 30 seconds late." Why are they taking so long to dress the deity? Akshāyananda explained that the deity dressing took about 1.5 hours. They are simply lazy, Prabhupada. So, yeah, that sums it up. We want to be to the minute. Yes.
A question that was related to you discussed it earlier. Prasad being contaminated, and so you have when you do the arati, there's the water that gets passed around, and sometimes you put fingers in the container, and then they sprinkle it, and then sometimes the people who put their fingers in the container, they put it in a vessel that's for people for drinking, and it sits there. And itself doesn't seem very hygienic.
Yeah, generally you want to, especially
the argument that was said, well, it's prasad, it doesn't get contaminated with your nails and your the water.
Yeah, especially related to that point. First off, is we don't want to get our fingernails in any of the water that we're going to be offering to the deities. We never want to say the bathing water. You never want to check the warmth of the water by sticking your finger in, because it's understood that the nails carry some stuff in between them. So you don't ever want to check that way. You always want to avoid. And also, for those of you that may do Samanyargya Stapana, you're establishing Samanyargya, invoking the holy rivers, like that. When you do this Ankush Mudra, the idea is you put it, this is the top of the water, the idea is you just put the bottom, put your finger right there, but you don't let the fingernail go in even. So to that point, you never want to have the fingernails going in anything. And then afterwards, there's these two different considerations. There's the hygienic consideration, and then there's the other. I didn't follow exactly what's being done, but we always want to be.
Sometimes that water just gets thrown to the plants.
Okay.
the one that nobody distributes to.
The RBF,
And not everybody does it like that. Some people pour their hands or kind of, but some people just stick their fingers in the pot.
Okay.
And then take that pot, put it in the drinking,
It's already offered to the deity.
It's already offered.
Yeah. After they set
Is
it.
it contaminated by the nails on it?
That water sits there all day long.
What I'll say is this, is that I wouldn't just stick my fingernails in there like that. I just couldn't. Okay, yes, please.
What kind of flowers that can be offered to the lordships in summer and spring and summer? Late in the day, we get a lot of flowers from homes, and we bring flowers here.
Okay.
So I was told that hibiscus cannot be offered to mission devotees.
Yeah.
In South India, where I'm from, we don't offer marigold, but we offer marigold here in abundance. We get that here a lot, and we offer that with love. Even I bring it from home. So what flowers can be offered and cannot be offered?
In the Pancharaksha Pradeep, there's a list, and in the revision that'll be coming, you'll see a list of offerable and unofferable. It delineates it all. In the Shastra, it says certain ones you can offer, certain ones you can't. So it's a pretty long list. Do you have a database?
Database, yeah.
Okay. So just go to the Pancharaksha Pradeep and look up offerable flowers or whatever, and you'll see a list, and it has the Latin names beside it. So that should answer your question. Whoever is next. Pick one from this side.
It's a real quick question. Have you ever heard this? My spiritual master told me when I offered him some flowers one time from the altar, I had it in my palm like this. So I was sticking my palm in his face. He said, no, you hold the flower in your fingers so that it sticks up, and then people can smell it. That's a nicer way of doing it. He told me to do it that way. Have you ever heard anyone else say that?
Like if you're offering for arti or something?
If you get the flower that's been offered to the deity, it's been offered to Prabhupada, and then you take it around to everybody from the arti tray. If you hold it so the flowering part is on top, that's preferable to having your palm there and then sticking your palm in someone's face so they have to smell your palm in addition to the flower. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
It sounds practical to me.
It sounds practical. My spiritual master told me to do it, so I always do it that way. But I've never mentioned that he told me that because it was something he told me. But I wondered if you'd ever heard that as being a standard.
I've never heard of a certain way to do it, but I do like that, because it's easier. It's just a practical thing.
When we are up on the altar, before even starting the deity worship, I have seen some devotees. I'm kind of confused if that is okay to do for me too, because when I go up on the altar, I touch the deity's feet in my hand, all the deities, and then do like this, and then I start the. But I have seen some devotees putting their head on Kalachanji's feet up on the altar, offering obeisances. Is that acceptable or something?
Yeah, I believe if you look, that's one of the 64 upacharas in Hari Bhakti Vilas, to put your head on the feet of the deity. It's totally okay. Yes.
Is there
I'm sorry, Mataji, I had a question. See, raise your hand. Sure? Okay.
Is there any preference over not using like one incense stick, but 3, 5? Is one acceptable?
Yeah, it's no set thing. No set thing. Most temples you'll see, especially when it's a bigger altar, bigger temple room, you'll see offering 3, but it's not right or wrong. I noticed here you're offering generally 1 stick, I think. One thing that's good to mention, just based on me seeing, is this whole understanding of Bhoga and Prasad and keeping them separate. So whether we're performing arati or whether we're on the altar and we're offering different items, especially during reception, we want to purify our hand first. So sometimes, for instance, when offering arati, after you're done with that item, you don't want to put it back on the plate. Either everything's off the plate and then you're going to put it on the plate, or vice versa. The idea is you want to keep the separation of Bhoga and Prasad. Because say you put a offered stick of incense back on the plate. Generally you don't do this, but say you do that in an ash, it'll go under the flower. Or you have the argya, and you are offering the argya, and you have the pot on the plate, and you're pouring it. You're going to get that offered water onto one of the other items. So generally, as a practice, devotees practically, they'll either have everything on the plate, and then when they're done with that item, they'll put it aside somewhere else, or they'll take everything off the plate and have an empty plate, and then when they're done, they'll put it on there so it's ready to go. And the idea is when you're done offering the item and you put the item down, the first thing you do is you're going to purify your hand before you pick up that next item. It's not that you you put down that prasad and then you say go pick up the fan and then you're going to purify the fan and then your hand. No, you purify your hand first before picking up the other things. And then especially when we're in between these primary items of worship like your padya, argya, achman, madhupark and all that, you want to be purifying your hand in between offering each thing. It's just like, it's the same idea as arti. You're going to a different primary item of worship, so you want to purify your hand. So you have bhoga, you have prasadam, and you have prasadi. Prasadi means it's technically it's not offered, but it's not offerable because you follow. So yeah, the way we do it is padya, however many times, purify the hand, then we go to the argya like that. Purify the hand, then go to achman.
Continuing with the same question. So the tray, we don't have achamanam cup as of now. So that means we have to add one achamanam cup because we are saying we have to purify our hand in between each offering. Like padyam, wash the hand, and argyam, wash the hand.
Okay.
So that means we have to have one more cup of item there, one more item, right?
You don't have a panchapatra for like purifying your hand?
Not right now. We are not.
That's generally a standard thing. Yeah, it's a standard thing to be able to purify your hand in between items.
There's also another bathing table.
Okay. I mean, it's a standard thing, just like, you're doing it for arti, so similarly, it's the same process. When you're going between the primary items, you purify your hand.
I don't want to be nitpicking. It's in the same vein also that, when there's an arti, and I know this is my experience in Mangal Arti time, during the arti. A lot of times the items will be brought back and placed back on the altar after they've gone around, whether it's the water, the ghee wick, the lamp. And two things that always bothers me about that is, one, it usually gets placed either on the steps or where the platform where devotees have to walk. So whether they're not walking there during that time, still to me it's considered, and I've actually knocked things with my feet when I come back to give something else to the. Right. And the other thing is whether it after it's gone around like that, you don't know who's been touching and this and that. Should it be brought back onto the altar and put back on the plate just to be taken back to the pujari room, or is this just common sense, or is it actually a standard? You should not put it back up there. Just put it off to the side and somebody else can take to the pujari room.
Yeah. I'm not aware of any restriction where after prasadam goes out, like the lamp or whatever, that you can't take it back on the altar and then take it out.
Okay.
But like you're saying, where it's placed sometimes can be challenging and you might potentially kick and all that. So it's more like just a practical consideration.
Yeah,
Maybe you want to do like this, have some system. It's more of a managerial thing than a...
Yeah, okay.
Right.
Yeah, I thought that too.
Whoever was next.
I just wanted to confirm my understanding of, the point you made about, a shower is not necessary after honoring prasadam. So sometimes if we came in, let's say for a festival, and then there was prasadam and everything, and then that same evening we had a Deity seva.
Okay.
So, living 35 miles north, we're not able to go and, shower again. So just changing clothes after honoring prasad would be okay to go for a Deity seva?
Provided nothing else went on that would put you in a state of impurity. Yeah, provided basically you didn't have to go to the bathroom.
Or anything
You
like
didn't, pick up the kitty cat or anything like that. So as long as you know, yeah.
Just prashadam, I mean, just for, I mean, like if you just order prashadam, then
Just on so you can come with a full clean set of altar cloth, and you go change. And of course, like I said, you wash your mouth thoroughly, and hands, feet, all that. But then you change up in the cloth and do it and Achman.
This is like the first time I'm hearing this, so I'm like.
I hope everyone else is comfortable with that. Sometimes I tell this to some devotees and they just they're like, oh, it's wrong, I'm so used to this.
Honestly, I'm stuck too. I'm like just thinking it through whatever.
If it makes you feel any better about it, like for instance, Jayānanda Dāsa Prabhu would just take off his clean cloth, put on a gamsha, would just be wearing a gamsha on her lunch prashad, clean his mouth, hands, feet, put on the cloth that he was wearing before, and good to go back.
There's nothing wrong with doing more, right? If you feel like you should shower or put on, then
feel like you should go.
nice.
Yes, not having a practical reason. I mean, at least we always take a shower and do everything, come clean to the altar. But there are times when, we come here for festivals and then,
You don't want to be sweaty or...
I was just going to say, there's a whole aspect of what's been going on during the day, and maybe you've been perspiring a lot and all that, so maybe it's good to be fresh anyway. So take that into consideration as well, what you've been doing. Some random things. We also want to be, quite careful about conversations on the altar.
Thank you.
They'll always, there will be things that come up where things having to do with the immediate service, it's okay to spot, but you want to do so in such a way that, you want to shout across the altar and things like that. You want to be respectful, understanding that there's the Supreme Personality of Godhead there on the altar. If something's to be said, you try to say it as softly as possible while being heard. Like that. It's really interesting, and we can use this as sort of a gauge of where we're at in our realization of the deities, to what extent we see the deity as the Supreme Lord, and what extent, we kind of don't have that realization yet. For many of us, we wouldn't dare even consider, if we're in front of our Guru Maharaj or something, and say we're offering some service, and say Maharaj is there and we're here. We wouldn't dare sometimes talk as loud as we hear devotees talking on the altar. So use that. Say, would I do that? Would I be behaving like that for Maharaj? What to speak of the Supreme Personality? So we want to kind of keep that consciousness in mind.
But isn't the Supreme Personality everywhere?
Sure.
Not oxymoron.
You never talk.
Yes.
Can I ask you a question about home worship?
Sure.
So typically we hear from our acharyas that when we try to offer at home, we should get bhoga that Krishna may like to eat. How does one do that? When I go, I always buy the things that we like, things we can eat, the things that will go off the fridge quickly now.
Yeah.
How do we know what Krishna would like? Or is it a topic of interpretation?
Generally, the consideration is purity of ingredients and all that. Granted, at home, it's very difficult to follow the same standards of purity as in the temple. And at home, also, the worship there, it's more on the family schedule. And here, we're on Krishna's schedule. At home, Krishna is more or less on our schedule. It's okay. Especially when you have children involved, you don't want to fry out your kids and grow up with this negative perception that, oh no, they couldn't eat yet when they were really hungry because they had to wait, a certain time when they eat after. So we don't recommend that. As much as you can regulate it, wonderful. But, especially with kids are involved, you want to raise them in such a way that they have, deep respect, appreciation, love for the deities and the deity worship, as opposed to then maybe having some not so positive feelings because somehow it obstructed their sense gratification when they're in such a young age. So, yeah. Yes, Prabhu?
Just wondering that Srila Prabhupada mentioned anything about those who are involved in deity service, Brahman initiated. They can have pets like dog and cats. It's all right. Yeah,
in the West here we have devotees that have house pets and whatnot, and I know it comes to quite a shock, especially for devotees that are coming right from India or what have you, because it's a whole other understanding there. We saw. I was just reading Prabhupada Lilamrita, and I think he was in Prabhupada went into he was now Mukunda Goswami's apartment or whatever, and I think a cat jumped up on his lap real quick and pushed her right off. The reality is pets aren't clean. They're not the cleanest animals. They're not clean. They tend to shed hair and all that. So it's very hard having the necessary cleanliness to go on the altar when you have these pets. When they're outside or something like that, that's one thing. But it's very challenging. You clean your cloth and you put it down somewhere, and then you might have a cat sit on top of it, or something. So.
I think the worst part is when you've just taken a shower, clean clothes, and you're walking out to do deity worship, and boom, the cat comes in front of you and tries to hug you or snuggle against you.
Kind of like,
I'm saying sometimes the different things that appropriate is all right. So someone cannot follow the standard, that's a different issue. But if it is something wrong, is wrong. So that's how is it wrong or right?
Coming in contact with, in general, coming in direct contact with animals, be it yourself or your clothes, that makes you dirty. You oftentimes will have hair and whatnot, or.
And when you're talking about animals who appear, I'm thinking appear continuous somehow. They smell so bad. I have experience in going somewhere somehow. But sometimes I see this. People can have their Brahman initiated, they're doing deity worship, so nobody said anything. I'm saying just, for me it's really, really...
It's hard to do that. Yeah,
It's not really Brahminical culture, so when we're talking about Brahminical culture.
Yeah, animals weren't kept in the home. You might have a cow in the back. Or something like that. But,
I have a question. It's regarding the mothers. You mentioned the person who took off his cloth, put his little gumshoe on, and ate beside him. For women, that's not possible. We can't do that. If we did do that, it would be a big disturbance. So we always have this debate the women do. Should I put on a sari? Should I put my gopi skirt on? Or should I just put a skirt on? And so I want to know what is proper attire for the kitchen. And I know what it is, but I just want to hear it from someone else. Should we have our gopi skirts on? Should we eat in our gopi skirts and then go in the kitchen? Should we eat in our saris and then go in the kitchen and cook? Or should we go in the pajama room and make a garland after we've eaten prasadam? Or should we go on the altar after we have did so many things? This is always a debate with the women. And you were saying we purify our hands, we do all of that. Should we pick up our child before going on the altar? What if a child runs up to us and hugs us? Do we run back home, put on another sari? Or, this is real for women. And the mothers on the altar. Okay, what do? We tell our child, okay, I'm going on the altar. We explain to them, okay, don't touch me, because I'm going on the altar. And I've done this in my pejorative life. So I want to know, what is the proper thing? Today, I want to, can I take my sari off, put on the skirt, and go in the kitchen? If it's too hot in there, or do I keep my sari on? It's easier for men, because most of the men hear me saying, where's your dhoti? Because they want to come into the kitchen with their pants on. So I just wanted to know your opinion about that.
Yeah, when performing, when you're cooking for the deities, cooking in the kitchen for the deities, when you're on the altar, it's sari and dhoti, no dhoti skirts in the kitchen. Srila Prabhupada wanted saris. That's how he trained up all his female disciples. Gopi skirts are something kind of new. I understand they may be more comfortable and easier to work with sometimes and all that.
I mean, things change over time. You see it back in our day too, in the earlier days. Women always kept their heads covered with their saris, different things like that. Things just, there are a little bit of evolution going on, I think, too, sometimes, but it's just common sense.
Yeah, so, many temples have different kinds of, different kitchens. So, like here, you have, 3 kitchens. You have your deity kitchen, you have a festival kitchen, you have the restaurant kitchen and all that. So, what, outside of the realm of outside of what's related to the deity worship, that's your call, I guess. But when it comes to things that are being offered to the deities, going on the altar, it should be, you should have a traditional Vaishnava attire.
I have a question. When devotees go off the altar, what services they can do directly for the deity, and what day can they come back in the pujari room and on the altar?
Srila Prabhupada has a couple quotes on this. Let's see. All right, so one thing he says is the principle is that everyone who is properly initiated in following the rules and regulations can worship. This activity cannot be on the material platform. According to the Smarta Vidi, women cannot touch the deity during the menstrual period, but the Goswami Vidi allows, but it is better not to do it. One thing is the seva can never be stopped for any reason. This also for the cooking. Another quote, regarding the woman with a period, as much as possible, she may avoid direct deity worship and cooking. But if there is no alternative, it is all right. She must always be very clean. And then, in terms of the time frame, this is coming from Mahamaya's book, Srila Prabhupada is coming. There was a whole debate. Swati and Kamalu were following the Indian standard of not going into the temple on the days they were off the altar. Devotee terminology for menstruation. It affected me when these ladies started insisting that we all follow their example. That sparked a debate among the ladies on this topic. I decided to ask Srila Prabhupada to settle the issue. On behalf of the ladies, I wrote a brief, polite letter signed the Mataji's of Mayapur and gave it to Hari Sori Prabhu. Later he told me Srila Prabhupada's solution. We would come to the temple in silk saris when we're off the altar, but we shouldn't perform deity worship. The ladies got to hear Srila Prabhupada's daily lectures and do the little drops of personal service for him, which satisfied us. We didn't feel Srila Prabhupada gave us less mercy because we were women. In fact, Srila Prabhupada is the only person who truly saw us as spirit souls and aspiring servants of Krishna. Thus, he encouraged us equally to perform our human lives and go back to God.
doesn't say how many days.
Days,
Doesn't mention
I
that.
think it was,
Sometimes
I
we
remember
have,
70, I remember 3 days, I think, for that summer.
what do we follow? 3 days. 3 days. So sometimes we have pujaris who are off the altar, but they come to make garlands. And a pujari who is going to be going on the altar might end up touching this lady who is off the altar making garlands. So that's why I asked that question. Then. How does it work?
Just make a local decision. Just make a local decision. Yeah, a lot of, just like Srila Prabhupada is also saying, the worship can't be stopped for any reason. So if there's plenty of facility here and devotees to take over the service when need be, then that's obviously a consideration. Many temples don't have that luxury, so they would lean more towards letting it slide. So based upon the resources and what you're able to work out, try to do the best you can.
I usually have a garden backup person, like when I can go, I have that other Bhakti who does what you do for me. I just have backups.
Or that Royal make it go in the temple.
In the temple room, yeah. It's a pujari.
Oh, another quick thing I wanted to add is in what I was observing, especially when we're doing the morning worship, we want to minimize any interruption in the service. So I know, practically speaking, when I'm dressing or there may be lack of space and you have to take a tray in and out and here and there. Okay, that's going to happen some. But as much as possible, you want to go straight with the service. That means you want to do your best to plan ahead, and before you go on the altar, you have everything ready. Not that you certainly you wouldn't want to undress the deities and then go in the pujari room for 15 minutes while you're picking out clothes and things like that. No, you have everything as ready as much as possible. And we're personalists, so once again, this comes to our realization: if you're serving someone in a normal human body, you wouldn't leave them naked for 15 minutes in the cold or whatever while you're going to find them. You'd have everything ready, right? So similarly, we want to have everything is prepared as much as possible, so we can just go straight through all the items. Yes.
My question has two parts. The first part is like talking about different standards being followed in different temples. So as you're going across different temples in North America, are there certain things, or at least for which you are looking to have standards all across the which you want uniform in all the temples? Is there a certain list of things that you're looking at?
Cleanliness and punctuality is at the top. Srila Prabhupada said, "Summit cleanliness, that'll satisfy Krishna." So it's not really, we hardly ever find temples saying, "Oh, that's clean enough," or "That's clean enough." There's different levels, but summit cleanliness, what does that mean? What's a summit? Summit means like the top of a mountain, you can't go any higher. So we always want to strive for that. And that's it's an indicator when we go to different temples, seeing how, what the level of cleanliness is. It gives us a good idea of where it's at. That being said, there can also be some very elevated and sincere pujaris at temples that are just really struggling to have enough help. And so cleanliness is one of the first things that starts to decline when you have just one or two pujaris doing all the service all day, and it comes down between actually doing the boat offering and the arti or polishing. You're gonna do the offering and arti. So those are main aspects. There's generally when we have some specific aspect of deity worship that Srila Prabhupada gave, that's like, we understand that to be a set thing. When it comes to like the morning worship and how elaborate our bathing procedures are and how many items we're offering and all, there's a lot of variation there. A lot of variation, and that's okay based upon once again, the number of pujaris and the level of training they may have.
The second part was like, if a temple discovers that there is certain difference between their procedures and the procedures mentioned in the Pancharatrika book that you're publishing, do you expect them to come back to you and clarify, or is it okay to just go on with the practices that have been going on for years?
Yeah, so as long as what's going on at a given temple is in the realm and the principles, then we don't say, oh no, you got to change this and that. We want to, like, I'm not coming here. We don't want to come and just turn everything upside down and say this, that, the other. Unless it's some direct thing Prabhupada said. Prabhupada said basically don't offer pieces of 3, so don't offer pieces of 3. But when it comes to and that's even just a detail, that's ultimately, that's not, the world's not going to end in a devotional service offering 3 pieces. But, that's something he said, and it's an instruction he gave, so okay, let's follow it. It's easy enough to follow, right? It's not like it's going to take an extra 2 pujaris on the schedule. But the short answer to your question is no, as long as whatever's going on is within the realm of proper deity worship as we understand it, then that's okay. We don't want to. It's not expected that temples are going to follow everything to a T. And even in the upcoming deity worship book, there's going to be 2 books. One book will be explanation. The second book will be the Padati, which means step-by-step process. And in that step-by-step process, you're going to have home worship, you're going to have simple temple worship, you're going to have a general standard, which most, the kind of like the average standard that we'd expect temples to have, and then we'll have elaborate worship. And it doesn't mean that a temple has to fit exactly within one of those levels. And we say, you might take some elaborate stuff and add it to the standard stuff, you might, or vice versa. So it's not like a black and white thing. It's okay to have variations. Mataji in the back had a question.
I was going to go back to the standards and etiquette behaviors for the pujari room. They follow the thing at the altar. Sometimes there are conversations that happen over distance. People come in and you might not see them for a while.
Right. In the pujari room, you're not in, the immediate presence of the deity, so it's understood that you're not. What's the word for it? It can be somewhat more relaxed. That being said, whether you're in the kitchen or whether you're in the pujari room, you generally you don't want to have mundane conversations and all that. Yeah, if you haven't seen someone in a while and you want to show affection towards a devotee, you miss them or whatever, okay, fine. Yeah, no problem. But in terms of random conversations that can wait, it's not involved with the service or whatever, it's better not. Try to have kind of like a sober mood. Does that make sense?
Coming to the cleanliness, how short should we keep our nails? Because I keep cutting them because I'm afraid I keep cutting it so much and my hands will not move faster. So I'm I want that to get clarified.
I've never heard of an exact formula, but don't hurt yourself. Don't start cutting off the tips of the fingers. Yeah, don't do that. It's not necessary. I mean, generally for myself, I try to just keep it short enough where there's not much light. That's kind of like the space where stuff's coming under. So when I see a little bit of white, I cut them.
So if the nail touches the deity, is it offensive?
I haven't heard anything like that directly in Shastra. Particularly, it's what we hear and what we have in our book is having the nail going in water. That's
okay.
Yeah. So you definitely want to avoid that. Other than that, you just keep them trim and keep your hands clean. You're fine. Yes, please.
Any guidelines on what fruits can and cannot be used for Abhishek to the deities during festival days?
What fruits can and cannot be used? I can tell you that when it comes to Abhishek, there's Rupa Goswami wrote something we call Shri Krishna Janma Tithi Vidhi. So this is the procedure for that we follow for performing Abhishek, Maha Abhishek. It's all the things in there. It's quite elaborate, so it's not so easy for most temples to do it. So you can just cut things out of it. But within there, regarding your question, it specifically mentions, I think, pomegranate. I can look it up after, but it specifically mentions 2 or 3 fruits that are particularly recommended. Was there any concerns of any certain fruit that you heard about?
No, I mean,
No.
I've
Just
seen
wondering.
some offerings in Abhishek in Mayapur, and they seem to use a lot more fruits than here. So I was just wondering, in practically, we cannot use lemon, typical sour things. So but I've seen lemon being used, lemon juice being used there. It's just guidelines would be nice. If you can email.
Sure. Oh, one thing I want to mention, because I understand it's getting late and we're all starting to trickle out. We have, we want to keep the Sangha together. And one way to do that, and to get quick answers to questions, and to also share, realizations, thoughts, concerns, practices with others. We have, for North American Temple Pujaris, I have a secret Facebook group. It's not even, the public can't even look it up, basically, because I don't want it to get watered down with nonsense. So I got about 160 some pujaris from the U.S. in it now, and the only way to get in it is if one of those members were to invite you. And once you get in it and you see it, then you're able to ask questions, and either I answer it or other devotees answer it. And oftentimes they're questions that are interesting or relevant to many, so it kind of helps us all. So the way to get on that, I guess the easiest way is if you just find me, Jayānanda Dāsa, on Facebook, and then you just request to be added to ISKCON Pujari Sangam North America, and then you'll be able to get all this stuff. So a lot of stuff's already there, and for instance, shortcut, basically a distilled version of the Abhishek based on Sri Krishna Janma Tithi Vidhi. I have that on there, so you can download the PDF. Things like that. So this is just like one attempt to let technology be able to get together and like that. So yeah, I encourage you all to
You also have a website?
Jayānanda Dāsa. Just look for that on Facebook. You'll see a goofy picture of me blowing the conch. That's the one. Yeah. So you just send me a message saying, Haribol Prabhu, we met in Dallas, and please add me to Pujari Sangam. Thank you.
I was wondering if the new edition of the book, if it's being made easier to use.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the main concerns with the prior book, it was hard to navigate and all that. So that's one of the main things that we're doing. It's we're polishing it up nicely, making it much more easy to read, much more easier to find stuff. Absolutely.
And do you know if there'll be a ebook version or a PDF version?
Yeah, I'll be making it. So I'll be putting together the ebook version, putting it on iTunes, putting it on Kindle and Google Play.
Can we use the frozen vegetables for DD?
Srila Prabhupada didn't want any frozen vegetables in the Temple of Deity kitchen. He says frozen means nasty. So we want to stay away, in terms of purity of ingredients, we want to stay away from any frozen vegetables. In general, pre-made stuff. And we want to stay away from stuff that has alcohol in it. Like for instance, if you go in this kitchen across here, as well as the Deity kitchen, there's vanilla essence, 35% alcohol. in Shastra, alcohol is basically, it messes up, it spoils your whole alchemy. So try to find these essences, health food store, wherever you can find it without alcohol.
What about big festival like Janmashtami and all, when you have 2,000-3,000 people? Can we use frozen vegetables at that time?
What most temples do is they'll oftentimes have a certain standard. When you're quantity cooking and all that, you're oftentimes having to use canned tomato sauce and all that. And that's for the quantity cooking. So okay, but when it comes to what's going on the altar for the deities, you maintain this higher standard. That's generally how most temples deal with it. Just put those items that are meeting the standard for what's going on the altar. Yes, ma'am.
Also on Ekadasi, there's certain ingredients like, say, whipping cream, it will have other chemicals or other ingredients in it, and we don't really know what they're from. So should we avoid that on Ekadasi? If you look at a container of whipped cream, it has monodiglyceride, polysorbate 80, or larbine gum, and some of the other things like that.
Store-bought whipped cream generally don't recommend using for deity offerings. Any kind of generally I wouldn't recommend that. And just like Prabhupada, you'll find stuff Prabhupada where he was calling devotees rascals for buying sour cream for the deities and all that. There was some rennet in it too, I think. But in general, we want to make our own paneer for the deity offerings. We want to make our own yogurt from milk and like that. And Prabhupada's always saying, minimize things that are produced by the karmi. I think that's the term.
Yeah, it's pretty standard. Temples use whipping cream, heavy cream.
The regular cream in the bottle is one thing, but like Cool Whip, no, I don't see it.
I'm just talking about just cream.
It's called whipping cream.
In a cart.
Okay.
But on Ekadasi, there's so many other things you don't really know where they come from.
Yeah.
I looked up one ingredient, monodiglycerides, and that comes from soybean oil.
Yeah.
All animals.
Or animals. It can be animals. Of course, hopefully we check to make sure it's not.
You can always call when it comes to that kind of stuff. Whenever there's a concern, you can call the manufacturer and find out exactly, if there's monodiglycerides or animal derived or plant derived or what it's derived from. You can always do that kind of stuff. Like one practical thing is for instance, like when I was offering Guru Puja today, I was thinking, the candles sometimes we use in temples. Oftentimes regular candles, they have like tallow, animal fats and things like that. So you might want to check and make sure you know what the candles are coming from, what ingredients. Because that's kind of funky, animal fats.
Vitamin D.
Yeah, the vitamin.
They stopped doing that years ago. They don't use. If you buy organic milk, then it may have fish oil, but if you have regular milk, it's synthetic. Most times it's synthetic.
That's something to check. I mean, we know it's a fact that when there wasn't alternatives, Prabhupada kind of was like, all right, well, with the milk. But now we have alternatives. Now there is that variety. What to speak of, the vitamins and where it's getting derived from. Because there's this big push to go towards ahimsa milk as much as possible. So like, if you're in closer proximity to Gita Nagari, they're delivering to like New York, Philadelphia, DC, a few other places.
I think that's a topic that's going to be discussed in the GBC meetings also.
Yeah, that was a topic that was discussed in Europe, and so now it's, I think, a topic.
Gita Nagari does 700 gallons a week.
Yeah.
We're going to need to probably wrap it up now. I'd like to thank Jayānanda Dāsa for coming. And if you have other questions.
One question.
Okay.
And I'm also happy to chat with anyone that wants to
That's what I was thinking afterwards.
Yeah, no problem. So any of you that it's getting late, feel leave, please. No problem. You can go ahead and leave. No problem. Thank you for coming. I'm really pleased so many of you are interested in deity worship and I hope that somehow by coming here today you'll be able to get some answers or some insight. we just touch the surface of many things. But like I said, my mood is I don't want to just be okay here today, gone tomorrow, and that's done. I welcome all of you to you can maintain a rapport. Actually, I have some cards. I have an email address. So those of you that want to take a card and want to contact me or call me if need be, feel free to do so. Right there. Yes, please.
Just wondering, I see people using like lighters, and that contains like gas from decomposed animals instead of matches. Is that okay?
I've never heard about where the gases are derived from for the lighters. There's that saying that everything, in this day and age, there's some fault, there's some cheating going on. So it's like, how far do we want to take it? Personally, I just use a lighter. At our school, we use a lighter to light a lamp. We just have a Buick lamp when we're doing our soda supercharged. So we'll have a Buick that we make, so we just use a lighter to light it. So that's a local temple choice or a personal choice for that matter. Whatever. What's to say that the stuff on the matches don't have funky stuff on it? It probably does. So tough in this day and age to really follow the stuff over.
Okay, so all of you that are still here, let's give Jayānanda Dāsa. We'll come back again soon.
Sure.
Giving us a wealth of knowledge.
Hopefully I didn't mess up your program.
Yeah, that's 16 times 4.
Can't you do two?
We don't want to decrease, we want to increase. But then we'll have to make an extra tray of cake.
Do 2 big pieces instead of 4 small pieces.
2 pieces.
Yeah. Because bringing down, right? You said the number shouldn't go down, it go up.
It's the same amount. No problem.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm happy to be here to speak with anyone one-on-one. We have what, Archie and 5:30?
Sometimes we during our at home, this time, how substitute is at home, maybe more this way more.